Hello, 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 everybody. I hope you're all doing well this fine Tuesday evening. Wow, what way to come back. First day back after a little bit of a holiday, a little bit of a break. And I'm here once again to cover our final masterclass of this series, which is mixed feelings, good and bad, in terms of getting these ones out the way and all sorted. But I'm really, really excited for this one. We're going to be talking all about Hitmarker itself and how you can be using the platform to better your chances of finding the right job for you. Because we've already talked about how you can be creating a really awesome resume and how to create a really awesome cover letter and how you can find the most success in your job interviews. But we kind of never talked about going through and actively finding that right job, which is maybe a bit of a miss. Maybe this one should have come first. But we figured, hey, we've drawn you all in. You've got that amazing information. And now we're going to talk through how to be using Hitmarker. And Hitmarker, got to give credit to our amazing dev team. It's a really, really easy site to use. It works exceptionally well. But there are some nuances and some things that maybe we haven't advertised as well in the past, which I'm going to reveal for all of you today in order to really help you take that job hunt to the next level. So hopefully that'll be all good. This one is likely to be a little bit shorter in terms of me speaking on the topic, so don't worry. Don't feel obliged to stay for an hour and a half or 2 hours like some of them have been. This won't be that. However, this is an excellent opportunity for anyone out there who's got any questions to ask to be dropping those in general chat, and I'll be coming to them as I see them come through. We have mods in the chat just to make sure that everything is running smoothly and that your questions will get answered. You could ask them pretty generally. In this one, it's kind of just a round out on any topic you want to know the answers to when it comes to Hitmarker, when it comes to the job hunt in general in esports and video games. And I'll be answering a lot of them here in this event today. And if I can't answer the question to a high standard, or if we run out of time, then as always, we'll be getting text answers written up and replying to those as quickly as we possibly can, because will be questions, I imagine, that other members of the team will be able to answer better than I can, which, sounds crazy that there will be other people who know more than I do. But here we are. We've got a very awesome team here that will be able to assist you in finding those great answers. So that's going to be the general layout of the talk today. That's kind of what we're going to be aiming to do. And yeah, we've only got a few points really, because Hitmarker as a website, as we've said, pretty self-explanatory. First thing that I will say is make sure that you have a Hitmarker account when you're signing up to the site. And if you're just there browsing on through and you see a job that you want to apply for, you can't apply for jobs without an account on Hitmarker. It's free, it's easy. It's really, really basic to just sign up with that email address and just sort yourselves out. And it's surprising how many people go through, just kind of browse Hitmarker, don't actually sign up for an account, don't apply for anything, and then just go off. If you're here looking for an esports and video game job, chances are Hitmarker is the place to find it. There are very few places that are going to have a better selection of live esports and gaming jobs. And if there are places like that, then they'll have a heap of other stuff that's going to bog you down and slow you down when it comes to finding that job. And we've all been there. We've all been looking for work, either unemployed just out of university or between jobs, or even if you're in employment and currently looking for work. You don't want to have to scroll. You don't want to type in esports or gaming and have to scroll through 15 pages of jobs at a casino, right? No one wants that. You don't want to be going into esports and seeing a bunch of jobs in traditional sports, because realistically, those are probably not what you're looking for either. So Hitmarker definitely the place to be when it comes to those opportunities, and signing up and getting an account with us is really a no-brainer. Something that links into that as well, and something that we advertised a lot when it first came out, but we maybe haven't talked about as much recently, is claiming your username on Hitmarker. Going into your account and making sure that you have a unique username that is just yours, right? You can do this by going into your account settings and setting up a username, and there's not the opportunity for you to have an overlap with someone else. So you can't go on and be Will, because that's already me. But getting yourself a good professional username that encapsulates you or your online persona is really, really great for having that professional account, having that branding already. The classic of, if you've got a username that is quite a common word, or you find that sometimes when you go onto games or you go onto websites and try and create an account and your name's already taken and you have to add like a 1 to the end, or you have to spell it with numbers in the middle of the word, it's a bad feeling if that's not how you actually want to be known. So getting on there as soon as you possibly can, and adding your username there. Hey, it's early enough in the process that you should be able to find the name you're looking for. You could even look for your own actual name as your username. So a lot of people have already started doing it, but it's something that I would recommend you do sooner rather than later. And again, you just click on the top right hand corner where you've got your little circle with your picture in it. You can go down to account settings and you can set up your username there. Absolutely free again. You want to give yourself something that helps you stand out a little bit, and differentiates you from the other users on the site. Something else that you should be doing in account settings as well, and this one always confuses me slightly, is you should really be connecting your social media, your Twitter account, to your Hitmarker account. So many people come to me, and I look over so many resumes, and this is something we talked about in the resume review section, or the resume review masterclass. And I always say, look, you want to be linking your Discord, your LinkedIn, your Twitter account to your resume so that people can easily click it. And I've had people who are looking for work in social media or marketing who come back and say, I have like 4 followers on Twitter, or I don't have a Twitter account. And I'm kind of just sitting there like, you want a job in social media, but you don't have a Twitter account. Does that add up? Is that really like, are you going to impress anyone by not having the social media that is the primary tool for esports? Probably not. So an extension to this point is probably make yourself a Twitter account if you don't already have one, and make sure that it's kept relatively up to date and professional if you're looking for an outward facing job like social media, like marketing, like PR. If you're going for something a bit more behind the scenes, it's much less relevant. But if you've got one and you're looking for work in those kind of areas, you want to be attaching it to Hitmarker. This will be a great way of you maybe gathering a couple more followers, and making it easy, especially if you're applying via Hitmarker itself. So for internal applications, we'll talk about a couple of different things, internal versus external, later on. But it's a great way, again, of just allowing the company, quick and easy, to check you out and see what you're all about, and to impress the company without actually having to do very much at all. It's, again, in the account settings, super easy to set up. If you haven't already done it, I don't know why you haven't already done it, but it's a great tool that you should definitely be using. And while that is all very, very useful, having kind of this easy setup stuff done, obviously you're here for the insider information. You don't want me just sitting here going, have a username and your Twitter account linked. You want to be knowing all of the in-depth information that other people don't necessarily always apply to using Hitmarker, because we want to be adding value to you today. So we're going to be going over a few of the pages that on Hitmarker are super useful and will be very, very relevant to you, but won't necessarily aren't stuff that you just jump out at, right? There's not stuff that if you're just on there to look at jobs, you might miss. And talking to you not only about where they are and what they are for, but kind of how you can use them to the best of your ability, and how you can look to utilize those pages. And the first one, this is the classic one that I always need to advise, because knowing where this page is makes my life super loads easier, is the career advice page. Now, this one is quite obvious. It's on the top bar if you're on the Hitmarker site, right between post jobs and light/dark mode. And it's a page that we have evidence to suggest that a lot of people find useful, but we don't necessarily see everyone using instantly. We'll get contacted by a lot of people asking us for careers advice, not knowing that all of this stuff exists. So we have an absolute ton of really great content, and primarily articles, but also some video content as well, that's designed to help you understand a little bit more about how to go through the application process. So if you've enjoyed the masterclasses we've done so far, this is going to be mind-blowing for you, because we have articles on cover letters and resumes. We've got multiple resume writing articles on this page, and they can go into greater depth than I can in half an hour of talking, into 40 minutes of talking, just because of the ability to use good examples, to use images to kind of show what we mean. Whereas this verbal medium is just me kind of talking you through steps. And that is not to say that there is not new information to be gained from stuff like the masterclasses, but this careers advice page with these articles is super, super crucial. There's not currently one for job interviews, which is the other masterclass that we've already done. However, soon TM, keep your eyes peeled for that one. We've got something in the works that will hopefully help you out if you are looking for that advice in not video form, slightly longer form in writing. And there's a bunch of other stuff in here that we haven't covered in these masterclasses yet, because we have only done 4 events, right? And we figured that these are the things that we talked about so far, including this one, are things that we're asked about all the time. These are our most commonly asked topics when it comes to career advice and finding a job. So we figured that we'd focus on those first. But there's a whole heap of stuff on here on topics that we know that you guys all want to hear about, and kind of maybe if we do a second series of masterclass, we'll go into in depth verbally. But there's stuff like networking, which we haven't really touched. We touched on a little bit in a couple of our masterclasses, but we haven't done one dedicated to that. Developing skills, understanding what kind of jobs are available, what jobs people want, and what those jobs do. So we've got some really awesome guest videos, and we've kind of talked about them a little bit in these articles, about artwork, content marketing, community management, social media. And with these articles, the ones that are specific to sectors, it's not just us going through and writing about what these jobs are, because yes, we are very well informed. We live and breathe esports and gaming jobs, even more than a job hunter necessarily. We spend so much time, we have so many combined hours of expertise in this area that we are perfectly capable of writing about what every single sector does, and kind of giving advice on those. But we went out and we found names in those sectors who can speak with great authority on what they do, because they're currently doing it. So if you're looking to become a community manager, we spoke to one of the community managers from Among Us. So we've got that understanding of someone who's doing it now is there. We've got content management from Atlanta FaZe. We've got 3D art from Team Liquid. Like, we've got people who are working at huge organizations within gaming and esports who sat down with us and said, look, this is what I do day to day. This is actually what this job is like, especially in those roles like social media community management, where you think, oh, it's all memes. It's all laughing about stuff that we found on Twitter and posting stuff on LinkedIn, where these people are like, no, this isn't all we do day to day. We have a bunch of other responsibilities, and kind of tempering expectations and saying, look, if you want to be doing this job, this is how you go about it. And this is how you can look to apply. These are the inside, well, not the inside secrets, because we're publishing them publicly, so all of you know. And after this talk, none of what I'm saying will be an insider secret anymore, because I'll have told everyone publicly, both in our Discord stream and in the after YouTube video. Hello, after YouTube video. But it's also them saying, if you want to be getting a job in this sector, this is what you should be doing now before you apply. These are the skills you want to look to develop. These are the things that you want to be able to say that you can do. And these are the kind of things that we look for in this sector. And if you're looking for a job in that sector, you need to be watching this stuff. You need to be reading these articles, because there's other people do. And if you're going in to look for a job in community management, and other people have taken on board this advice that's freely available, and you didn't know it was there, or you haven't had the opportunity to take on that advice, then that person's instantly got a step up on you. They've instantly got that little bit more. They're working on better information. And if you're working on worse information, then likelihood is you're going to be at a massive disadvantage. So just going through here and checking out these articles is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of wasted applications. Because with job applications, you can just kind of go into job application number one, kind of do whatever you think is correct, and then get that feedback that says these are the things that are wrong with it. If you get feedback, because some esports and gaming companies are bad and they don't give proper feedback, or they're just super busy and they can't give proper feedback. And throughout a period of time, with each application, your application should get better because you'll find out what works, you'll find out what doesn't, and you'll naturally improve to a point where most stuff works so you can get yourself to interview, and then the process kind of repeats itself. These articles are basically here to prevent you from making the early mistakes that are going to slow you down, that are going to cost you the opportunity to get to that first, second, third job that you apply for in that list. Especially when if you're just looking for work, you've just come out of university, or you've just found yourself looking for a new job. If the perfect one comes up, you don't want that job to be the one where you kind of don't really know how to write a resume, or you're not sure how to present your experience for an esports specific role, right? You want to be able to do that immediately because you don't want to be doing trial and error when it comes to the role at the company you really, really want to work for, in the position you really, really want to be in. So I would advise you put a favorite on this page, bookmark it, do whatever it is you do with stuff that you want to be reading later, and just go through and see what in there looks useful to you. Of course, you shouldn't be reading every single article on here, because if, say, you're looking for a job in graphic design, chances are you don't need to know the ins and outs of... actually, that's a bad example, because graphic design is very general. You don't need to know the ins and outs of journalism if you're going for a graphic design job, right? So chances are you don't need to read that article on journalism. However, you're looking for a job in journalism, that will be very useful for you, but the 3D art job description, probably less so. And we're constantly trying to keep these articles, not only updating the articles we already have with the most up-to-date information as things change, or we learn new things about how jobs work, or how a resume should be written, and we develop our own kind of understanding of that. We keep these updated and we look to add new stuff. So it's still worth checking back here every so often. You don't have to do it daily because that's a little overkill. But new articles are added here. New stuff is included here that you should be going back and checking out. If you want my top tips immediately, if you're just looking to apply for stuff now, the Ultimate Esports and Gaming Resume example article is amazing. It's got a great amount of detail, and it's really great in talking you step by step through the process of writing a resume. Not necessarily just saying, if you go online, you can say, how do I write a resume? And there'll be a million articles that will tell you what sections you need. But if you're wanting to write a specific esports resume, this is a great article to help you not only write and add the right things, but to explain how you should be going about doing that and why you should be going about doing that. And adding the why is great because it should teach you something rather than just saying, write about your skills and experience. Like, yeah, sure, we know that you need to include those things, but we also tell you how you should be going about doing that and why you should be going about those things in a certain way. The awesome cover letter guide is also an absolute must read. For the cover letters, there's one on internships as well, which is much more specific. If you're not looking for internships, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, don't bother reading that article. But if you are, it's one of the best pieces that you can possibly get on that topic. And at the very, very bottom, if you're on that page, again, hitmarker.net/career-advice, or you can find it on our website as well. There's an in-depth guide about Hitmarker CV. Now, Hitmarker CV is a super amazing tool. We've talked about it when we were talking about writing your CV. We're going to talk about it again today with a couple of things that you should keep in mind when actually using it. Not necessarily on the CV writing side, because we talked about that at length already. But this one is going to be more about using the software itself. Read that guide. It's super useful. It'll give you a lot of helpful tips. And the number of times that I'll see a resume, I'll get asked, hey, can you read through this resume for me and give me advice? And I'll sit down and I'll be like, oh, I'll always say, yeah, of course, absolutely. That's my job. I'm here for it. I love reading through and helping people improve their resumes. The number of times I sit down and I'm like, cool. Every single thing that I would say to improve in this resume is covered in our articles. It's higher than you'd think, because a lot of the great advice we have. Just got a question through. What's the difference between a CV and a resume? There is no difference. It's just I'm bad at using it. So it's essentially, a resume is just the Americanized term. So basically, if people are asking for a CV or a resume, they will mean the same document. It's a resume is Americanized CV or curriculum vitae in Latin, which is what that's short for. That'll be the more European wording of it. It's the same document. So it's the 1 page, preferably, or the 2 page at a push. Quick rundown of who you are, your experience, your education, and kind of the verifiable big points in your application. As opposed to a cover letter, which can sometimes also get confused in this kind of conversation, which is a more long form written piece explaining more about you and explaining why you're going for that job and why you'd be an asset to that company. If you want to know more about writing a CV/resume, again, same document, or more about writing a cover letter, the first 2 masterclasses that we did on those topics, which total almost 3 hours of content, I'm pretty sure, will be available on our YouTube channel. They'll be linked somewhere in here, and we'll put out another link. I'm sure we can get another link in general if you want to go back and watch those after this. Or you can go, as we said, to the careers advice articles, where you can talk about the resumes, where you can read the articles about the resumes and about the cover letters. Generally, we tend to use the term resume just because it's a more commonly used term that we found. But we called the product Hitmarker CV because we're British. And, I think it's a better name anyway than Hitmarker Resume would be. So I feel like the people who made the call there made the right call on that one. In fact, let's talk about Hitmarker CV now. I was going to talk about something else first, but I feel like that's a natural progression to talking about Hitmarker CV. And again, this will not be a case of going through and discussing in depth how you should write a CV or how you should write a resume, because we've already done that at length. There's already an amazing article on it. If you have yourself a resume that you want us to look over, first things first, check out the articles to make sure you've kind of dodged the common pitfalls. And then feel free to send it over to us in the feedback channels in Discord, because not only does that allow us to catch it, download it, add it to our list of resumes to look over. And as a warning, we get a lot to look over, so the turnaround isn't going to be immediate. But we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. I read resumes all the time, so I'm always constantly trying to improve that. And our community is amazing in our Discord. So if you're new here for this event, hello, welcome to the best job hunting community in the world, confirmed by me. Our community will also be able to have a look at your resume, chip in with advice, and give you some helpful tips as well. Because while we might take a few days to give you a full rundown and give you pages and pages of advice, it could just be a community member saying, hey, have you considered adding this? Or this is something that I learned from my job hunt. We see that all the time, where we've got a great mix of people who are currently hunting for work or people who are in employment in esports and gaming, who can give you advice in a conversational format immediately. That can really, really help you out. So that's what I recommend. Put it in the feedback channel in our Discord. If you don't feel confident in doing it publicly, you can always drop it to myself on Discord, Hitmarker Will. You'll see me. I'm the Torkole. Or any other member of the Hitmarker team, myself preferably, because I'm the one who usually runs all of the reviews. But sending it to another member of staff, it will find its way onto our list and other people will be able to help you out. So Hitmarker CV, first things first, the way that you find your way to Hitmarker CV, I've been asked this a couple of times, is you need to go into the top right where you've got your profile picture. Or if you don't have a picture, it's just kind of the white like head with the grey background. Go on there, you click that, you scroll down, it's Hitmarker CV. You can also find it by typing in hitmarker.net/CV. You'll also find your way to that page. A couple of things that I would really recommend in terms of just using Hitmarker CV. Once you've written it and kind of added all of the amazing information that you've got about yourself, your experience, your education, anything else that you're wanting to include in this kind of document. One thing that you will notice is that we automatically put it in quite a good order for the common job seeker that we see on our platform. So the list on the left, which starts with general and then goes down, that will automatically be something that works for the majority of our users. You might not be the majority of our users. For the prime example of this is if you're someone who's at university or at college, so between the ages of say 16 and 21, and you have no work experience to speak of, or your work experience is like you worked in a coffee shop for a summer, there's a high likelihood that your education and your background there is going to be much more relevant than your experience. It should be noted by if you don't include a section, it will not appear in the final CV. So if something like language is a section that you're not going to add because you only speak English, and you don't need to specify that you do so because your whole application is in English, and they don't need another language and you don't need another language for that job, you can just leave that blank, it won't appear. But if you really want to highlight that education over that experience, you can drag and drop those sections to be more in line with how you want to present yourself. And by and large, the stuff that's going to impress the employer the most should be nearer the top, and the stuff where you've got less information or less impressive stuff should be moved down the list. By and large, you want experience to be the first thing that comes up before education, but you might want to change that as you go through. It's always something that's super useful to do. And again, something like your skills section, you might want to move that down. I'm just being told by our moderator, if you have any questions, please let us know. You can type them in general, and we will be getting to them. We've actually got another 2 questions that have come through, which I'm going to answer quickly now. What's the best way to go about taking on tests from companies early in the interview process, specifically where they ask for actual work or insights on specific business practices with vague guidelines? Have had test projects that make sense, but others feel a bit like fishing for content or business strategy without willingness to pay for expertise. This is one of those really awkward things where it sucks when a company uses you for basically free ideas. I guess we've all been there. And first things first, if you find that if you've applied for a job with a company and they've used your application material for content, and you've got evidence of this, please contact Hitmarker if you found the job with us, or even if you didn't, even if it's just a generic video game esports job, even if you found it somewhere else and you've been done dirty by a company, please let us know. Because we want to know, we want to keep our site as fresh from bad actors in the community as we possibly can. And there have been times where we've had to ban companies, or we've had to look into allegations like that. So the first thing I would say is, if that happens to you, please let us know as soon as you can. In terms of going about tests for companies early on in the interview process, and doing kind of like projects and proving that you know what you're doing, this is very common in creative pursuits as well as in stuff like marketing, where they want to know what kind of ideas you're going to bring to the table. I would recommend, first of all, checking to see, reading everything that they say to you and making sure that you understand fully what the task is, understanding how much time it's going to take you and what they're asking. Because if they're asking you for a full social media strategy with graphics, and they've only given you like 3 days to do it, kind of that should picture what they're looking for, what they're aiming for, right? If they want you to do 5 graphics in a 2-day turnaround, you want it to be good, but you can't be spending hours and hours and hours on each individual one, because that's not realistic, right? The same way, if you get given 2 weeks to do a task, you want to be spending a significant amount of time on that task, because that's what they'll be expecting at that stage. There will be companies that will ask for this kind of stuff with really unreasonable expectations. So they'll be like 10 graphics in the next 2 hours. And they'll be like, these graphics aren't perfect image for image. Those companies suck, usually. And realistically, you don't want to be working in an environment like that. And I know from experience that hearing that is going to be like, well, I really did want that job. Working at a toxic company or working in a role that doesn't suit you is going to hurt much more in the long run than getting the job initially feels good, if that makes sense. So I would look at the deadline, make sure you know the deadline, especially if they just have a date. Often asking for a time, if they have a specific one, can be really useful, just so that you know that you're not going to be rushy at the end or overrunning the deadline and giving a bad impression. And companies should always be happy to just confirm those kind of things with you. And if you're worried about stuff being used without your consent, if you're doing something visual, adding a small watermark at the bottom, companies aren't really going to worry about that. You can even mention it when you hand in, just saying, hey, I've added my watermark, that wouldn't be used on official design. But that's just a way of protecting you from it being recycled and reused. When it comes to like business strategy and marketing plans, that's much trickier, just because it's hard to prove that they've stolen your idea. Again, look at the time frame, see how long that is. Try and get stuff down in writing and send it over that way, because that will help you avoid the whole just telling them something in an interview or a call and then them saying, well, you never said that to us. Because if the call isn't recorded, then it's just your word versus theirs, and it's difficult for anyone to prove anything there. But if you're writing down your ideas and sending it over to them, then people will be able to see. So say if you don't have a complaint that you send to us, we'll be able to see when you said and suggested that they should do something. And if they do it a few days later, hey, maybe there's more evidence of wrongdoing. I think there are a lot less shady actors in esports than some people fear, just because you hear the horror stories and you don't necessarily hear about the time that someone made a graphic for a company and the graphic was good and the company hired them without using the graphic. But yeah, don't let early creative tasks put you off, but do be wary and do take a couple of steps just to protect yourself if the company is a little bit shady in that way. But again, hopefully that shouldn't be the case, and we hope and pray that that's never the case. How many job applications in a week/day is too many applications? That's a tricky one. When I was job hunting, I would maybe put out a couple of applications a day. I think generally, the couple of rules that I would live by is you want to be putting in a load of effort into each application. This is why we say tailor every application to that specific job. Don't copy and paste your cover letter. Look at your resume every time you're about to send it out to make sure that it fully highlights the right stuff and includes the right skills. You want to be doing everything you can to make every single application great, because what's the point of sending 5 applications a day if they're all copy and paste cover letters that aren't going to get you any responses, is how I would phrase that kind of thing. And if you're doing an application right, if you're spending a lot of time making a cover letter, making sure that your portfolio is correct if you've got a creative portfolio, making sure that your resume is going to be laid out perfectly every time it's sent off, it will take time. It's not a quick, easy process. And being able to being able to spend that time on it is really useful. You can't do 5 really good applications in a day without burning yourself out in the long run. It's something that I would say. And within job hunting, and this is esports gaming anywhere, you just need one success at a good job to not have to be job hunting anymore. So yes, you might want to apply for 25 jobs every week, but if those applications are weaker because you're not spending time on them, then you're not really fully applying for 25 jobs a week. You're kind of just posting your cover letter on the internet. And there's not really that much point in doing so. That being said, you should be applying for multiple different jobs, especially if you're between work or you're just coming out of university, because you can't just apply for one and wait for a response before doing the next, because some companies take 14 days to respond. Some companies don't respond at all, unfortunately. And you're holding yourself back if you're just applying for one thing and then waiting. Even if that application is amazing and the best you can do, sometimes that application, you won't be the right person for the job, strictly speaking. Or sometimes that job will be filled internally. Or sometimes there'll be just one person who's got slightly more experience than you. Especially at entry and junior levels, if you're applying for just one job, sometimes there'll just be someone with 5 years experience who applies. And it's silly because they shouldn't be applying for an entry-level job, but sometimes that just happens. So just doing that one job application a day or a week is probably not enough. The other thing that I would say is that if you're applying for multiple different things, try not to necessarily apply for multiple roles at the same company at the same time, unless the roles are very linked. Just because it can be a red flag for a hiring manager who says this person doesn't necessarily know what they want to do. Right? So if you're, say you want to work at Riot Games, you love League of Legends for whatever reason, and you want to work for Riot, and you see a job for a model artist, and you're like, yep, I love artwork, I did it at university, amazing, brilliant, I'm going to apply for this job. But then you also see a job for social media manager at Riot Games, and you're like, yeah, brilliant, I'm going to throw my application there as well. Riot Games is going to sit down, look at that, and be like, this person has applied for model art and social media management. Realistically, we want someone who's going to be an expert in one field rather than kind of being able to do everything. And showing off that you know what you want to do to a company is a big step, and it's something that they always want to see. This is not to say that you need to know what you want to do. You just need to give the appearance that you know what you want to do. So you could apply for a model art job at Riot Games and the next day apply for a social media manager job at, I don't know, XL Esports, the classic. Because those two companies aren't going to be comparing with their HR teams like, oh, did Will apply for a job with you because he applied with us? Oh, that doesn't happen. But internally, companies do talk, and it might just be the same hiring manager dealing with both. So you just want to be applying for one discipline within a company at a time. That is not to say that you apply for social media at Riot, you get rejected, and 3 months later you can apply for animation or model art. You can definitely do that, but I would say don't throw so many applications at one company at a time just because you really want to work at that company, because that will show in your applications, and that's not really the impression you want to give. Hopefully that's answered those questions. Just another quick one about Hitmarker CV before we move on to our final couple of points and our big main point, actually, about how you should be using Hitmarker. Hitmarker CV, something that people don't use often enough, is that next to where your CV is listed, at the top with that nice orange button, very on brand, is the more. If you drop down more, there is the option to download your CV as a PDF. You want to be doing this and you want to be utilizing this a bunch because this allows you to use your CV, your Hitmarker CV, on applications that aren't directly through Hitmarker. And I'm never going to recommend that you apply for jobs off Hitmarker because we're the best site. We have all the jobs. You should use us. But for whatever reason, if you find yourself on a different website, or more likely, you've clicked through a job application that you really like on Hitmarker and it takes you to their own ATS to a different website where they've listed the job, you want to be able to use your Hitmarker CV for that application because it's a really well laid out, inventive way of showing off a CV, an application. So you want to be able to use it, and downloading it as a PDF is the way that you can do so. And we hear all the time, and we see it on applications, that hiring managers want to be able to see stuff like this as a PDF primarily. So giving it in the right format as well is always going to be good. And it allows you to make those slight changes within your CV and then save it and use that CV when you're applying for slightly different jobs. So the difference between social media manager and community manager might be slight, but that slight difference should be reflected on your resume, if you're following me. So having one that's your social media CV and one that's your community management CV, if you've downloaded them both as a PDF, you don't have to make those small changes every single time you send off your applications. So definitely something that I'd recommend doing. And they look really good when you download them as a PDF. Not to say they don't look good if you hit that hitmarker.cv/your username. They look great as well. And if you're applying it for stuff internally, so where people are applying or using Hitmarker and they're looking for job seekers through our platform, you can just click the little button that says use your Hitmarker CV with this application, because that's going to send automatically to them, and you don't have to worry about sending it over in PDF or formatting or anything like that, because it's already sorted for you, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We want to make your life as easy as possible when it comes to job applications, and doing so, it'll be easy. We've heard from multiple people that having a Hitmarker CV, both available to just click that little button and to download, has made their lives much, much easier than having multiple different badly formatted CVs that are Word documents and not PDFs. So you should do it, is what I'm saying in uncertain terms. It's what I would do if I was searching for work, but I am not searching for work currently. Right, that's the advice. Those are the insider guides to Hitmarker CV. Again, we have a really, really great article in our careers advice section that talks about how you should be doing your Hitmarker CV. Remember, if you've got any questions, please get them in sooner rather than later, because we're only going to be running about 20 more minutes. And if we're getting a load of questions in 10 minutes time, we might struggle to answer them all here. So if you want to ask something, it's better to ask sooner rather than later. I have a quick drink. For those of you who are keeping track of my hydration techniques throughout these events, I'm currently drinking sugar-free Vimto. So there you go, the squash version, which is very good. I do have apple juice in the fridge for the OGs. The OGs from the first masterclass will know all about that. What's the Hitmarker team's opinion about cold emails versus reacting upon job adverts? I like the idea of reacting to job adverts on social media. Love it. It's brilliant. If you go back far enough in the old annals of history, you'll find a post from Hitmarker saying that they're hiring and it's 24 hours later, like left on that. I reacted to that when I was job hunting because it helps you kind of not even necessarily put a face to a name, but then they'll see your application be like, this person responded to us on the social media. Always something that's worth doing. Don't do it to every single job advert that you see, but a lot of job ads will kind of call for like the at someone you think would be great for this job, or share this kind of stuff around. Doing that reaction is always going to be fine. I would never say that it's a bad thing unless you're interacting with it very wrong. And at that point, that's more a case on your social media etiquette than anything else. So I think that's absolutely fine. Cold emailing people, or unsolicited job applications, as we tend to call them, I'm not a huge fan of doing so. I don't love the practice. By and large, this is something that I get asked about a lot in the world of casting and observing and kind of freelance esports talent. A lot of people asking, who should I be emailing to about this role? Who should I be emailing? Or who should I be DMing? I think generally if they want someone of your skill set, they'll have a job posting for that kind of job. So a game development studio is probably not looking for an animator if they don't have an animation role posted. That being said, there are a surprising number of companies, and we don't have this listed on Hitmarker because we don't list unsolicited applications or soliciting unsolicited applications. But a lot of companies will say, hey, if you can't find a job that's right for you, but you think you should work for us, drop us an application. And in those cases, it's a great, like, absolutely, they've opened themselves up and they've asked for you to basically cold email them. In which case, absolutely do that. There's also something called a general application, which is kind of a similar thing where they're like, you want to come work for us, convince us why. Companies will put those out. A surprising number of esports and game developers especially, we see this a surprising amount. So if there's a company you really want to work for and you can't find what you want on a Hitmarker for them, going onto their careers page on their website can be a way of finding what you need. That is my advice. I would say that if a company isn't asking for general or unsolicited applications, don't just go emailing their hiring manager asking for a job. You'll see like fairy tale stories of people saying, hey, Carlos, how many retweets to get a job at G2? That's not how G2 hire most of their staff. And I wouldn't recommend doing it too often, kind of thing. I love to see it when it works. But if you want to do like an unsolicited application, make it inventive, make it creative, and show off what you can do, because then you'll get traction. We've seen this in esports a lot, where you'll see like a video editor edit together a really awesome application video, and they'll put it out like, hey, I'm looking for a job at an esports org. This is what I can do. And they'll like make it in the style of an esports org, and someone from the org will see it and be like, sick, I love this, do it. We're going to come hire you, we're going to talk to you. So it can be done, but don't just be emailing every HR person from every single company asking for a job, because they'll get worn down. And then if you apply for a job in the future, they might remember you in a negative way. Would be what I'd say to that answer. Will the stage be recorded and uploaded on YouTube like the others? Yes, it will. This stage is currently... Let me check. Let me just quickly check. This stage is currently being recorded by me, so it will find its way onto our YouTube channel in the next week or so. But yes, absolutely, this one will be available. Don't worry if you have to leave early. It's fine. You can come back and watch it later. Our moderator's name is in the way of the last question. What does a verified company mean on Hitmarker? The blue tick. A verified company on Hitmarker essentially just means that you've either it's a very big name company that uses our platform, or it's a company that has consistently posted themselves full-time paid work. So, for example, XL Esports, use them again, consistently post to our platform themselves with full-time paid work. And so we've given them that verified tick, because when a company is actively using our site, the chances of them having dead links on our site are vastly, vastly, vastly reduced. And if the Hitmarker team is finding jobs online elsewhere, because other platforms are less well regulated than our own, or less well admined than our own, the chances of like us finding something that looks alive and posting it but it actually not existing is higher than if a company comes to us directly. So that's the verification is kind of this job is almost certainly alive. This company consistently posts full-time work with us, full-time paid work with us. It's not necessarily a validation of we've talked to this company and know and love them. It's just a case of we trust that the majority of their jobs are going to be open on our platform, and they've done this themselves consistently, or they're a massive name in the world of esports or gaming. Oh yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. my mod is being exceptionally helpful with showing me where these questions are. Thank you, Trev. The final question I'm going to answer right now before I really need to get onto filters. But if you've got questions, please keep asking them. We'll talk about filters, and then I'll remind you to use dark mode because light mode sucks. And then we'll do a last round of question answering if there are any more. Any recommendations for those of us who don't have much experience for what we can add to resumes to get noticed? Talking about your education and not just saying the name of the course you did at university or the subjects you did at college. So adding that, those extracurriculars is going to be great, because being the chairman of an esports organization at university, while not a full-time job, can go a very long way in helping you show that you've got a passion for esports, that you've got experience in multiple different facets of it, and that can be very, very useful to you. It's not the same as having full-time experience in esports, but it's certainly as good as like a freelance role that you took on for a year. So doing that and kind of adding that information to your education is going to be good. Adding a little bit more about your skills can be good as well. So not just saying that you've got video editing skills, but making sure to mention what software that is going to be very, very helpful if you haven't got the experience to back up, to like prove that you've got these skills. Because experience is really proof that your skills exist. But if you're can't do that because your experience is limited, because you're younger or you haven't had the opportunity to build it, then making it more specific in your like skill section is going to help a lot. And finally, what was I going to say? There was another point I was going to make. Professional summary is a great place to kind of explain why you haven't yet got that experience, just saying that you're just coming out of education. But it doesn't have to be esports experience that you highlight, of course. You can, if you've worked other jobs, you can add those if you don't have the full-time esports or the full-time experience. But just kind of focusing what you write about those opportunities to fit the role that you're applying for can be really, really great. So if you worked at a coffee shop, that's the classic, but you're applying for a social media job, did you help out with the marketing for the coffee shop? Did you run their social media program for 6 months for that branch? Like stuff like that is definitely worth including, even though it might not seem like the job was the most relevant. You can still find bits and pieces that are going to be relevant for your application. But it's those kind of things where if you find your application well below a page in length, just finding ways to add value and boost the length of it without just randomly writing stuff that doesn't add anything. Like when it comes to like a lot of people will pad it out with loads of hobbies. You don't necessarily want to do that, because you could talk about your hobbies in your cover letter. But just adding a little bit more about your education and your background when you were at school or at university can be the thing that interests the hiring manager enough to take you through to interview. And of course, your cover letter alongside is going to be able to show that you've got skills and that you're a good employee, even if you don't have that experience on your on your CV. Right, let's talk about filters. When you're on Hitmarker and you're on that page with 9,380 new jobs or current jobs on the platform, just going to refresh to make sure that's the right number. Oh no, it's 9,405. Someone has quietly been adding jobs while this event has been going on. Trev, if that's you, excellent work. You can see along the left-hand side, there are a bunch of different things that you can search for. And what I'm going to quickly do is kind of explain how you should use this to show your profile as a candidate and what you should be doing with these filters. So my general recommendation is with job title, if you're a newer candidate, ignore this section. If you're someone who's more senior and you've worked in these sorts a long time and you know exactly what your job title wants to be, you can use this to search for stuff. But because gaming developers and peripheral developers and esports organizations will all have slightly different phrasing and will oftentimes call like one job 2 different words. So sometimes they'll say community manager, but it's actually a social media manager. Or 2 companies will call something a admin assistant, but one of them might be admin, one of them might be HR recruitment. So if you're kind of newer to the game, and even if you're not, even if you're a more intermediate senior candidate, unless you know exactly what you're looking for, don't worry about filling this in. Location, feel free to put any location that A, you're willing to work from, and B, you're legally able to work. There's no point in applying for a job in Sao Paulo if you can't move to Sao Paulo. It seems simple, but you'd be surprised. So remember to add remote here as well, because anyone can work remote, assuming that you've got internet at your house and you're willing to do so. So just putting in every location you're willing to work in might help open up new opportunities for you. This is especially useful if you're happy to work kind of strange hours. So say you're based in the UK, but you're willing to work US hours. This can be where you find new opportunities that maybe others won't be able to utilize in the same way if they're very strictly have to do UK hours for whatever reason. Always fill this section out, because you never want to be looking through hundreds of jobs that you can't apply for because you can't go to America, because a lot of the jobs we have are based in the US. Sector is always worth doing as well if you know what you want to be doing. All of the jobs on Hitmarker we go through, or Human goes through and kind of assigns the sector manually. So we'll have made a judgment call on what each job is. We can choose up to 3 sectors on there. So you should be pretty confident that if you type in social media, that the jobs that come up will be related to social media to a significant degree. There will always be there may be a slight error in a small sample of the jobs we do, but by and large, our team has been doing this for a very long time. A significant portion of them have. And even with newer people coming in, they get training to understand what sectors are what. So if you're looking for a job in social media, everything that's listed should be social media adjacent. Feel free to put in a number of sectors that you want to consider, and put in sectors around the one that you want to work in if you're not entirely sure exactly what you want to do. So if you're pretty sure you want to be a social media manager, put in community management, put in marketing, put in stuff that's kind of in that realm, because you might find that the parts of social media that you really love are more filled in other kinds of jobs. So that's always definitely worth doing. And it helps remove a lot of stuff like the software engineering, the game development stuff, if you're not coding inclined. So each job can have up to 3, but you can put as many as you want. Remember that the more you put in, the more jobs you're going to have to sift through. Company, again, is something that you can largely ignore unless you know exactly what you're looking for. And it's a good way just to see if there's a company that's near you, or a company that you'd really love to work at. It's a great way of just seeing what they have available. Remember that you can be using all of these individually, or you can be using all of these in tandem with each other. So if, say, you're really looking for remote work because you really want to work from home, and you want it to be in social media or marketing, and you want it to be at Twitch or Riot, you can add all of these things and it will really narrow down your search. And we'll talk about why narrowing down loads can be good in certain situations, and why having a broader set of filters as well is going to be useful. But yeah, by and large, the company one you don't necessarily have to fill in every time. The esports tick, this is something that we talk about a lot with people individually. I know I have. A lot of people say they want to work in esports, but would also love to work in video games, but they only ever say they want to work specifically in esports. So this esports tick will remove all the jobs on here that are generally gaming and not esports. Sit down and really think, why do I just want to work in esports? Why would I not be happy working in video games? Right? And if the answer is something like, I want to work for a competitive esports team, I want to be a coach or a caster, and those kind of jobs don't really exist in gaming, perfectly reasonable. You go ahead, but maybe use the sectors instead, because coaching and hosting / presenting might find something a little bit crazy in the video game sector at large. But if you're dead set on just working in esports, click that. You'll only see esports opportunities, but I would advise against doing so, especially if you're newer to the industry and you just want to find that first job. You'd be surprised about how many opportunities there are in general gaming compared to esports, especially in somewhere like the UK, where there's only a couple of esports orgs, but there are loads of game developers. So something to keep in mind there. Job level, really quickly, we go through this a lot. If you've got less than a year experience, your entry. If you've got 1 to 2 years experience, your junior. 2 to 5 is intermediate, and more than 5 is senior. Don't be afraid if you've got, say, one to 1.5 years of experience. You can click intermediate as well. You can see those jobs coming through, but just checking through to make sure that it's not an intermediate that requires 4 years. Just because if you're applying for a job that's got 4 years requirement and you've only got a year and a half, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to go through that application because there will be people applying with more. But if a job only asks for 2 years experience and you've got a year and a half, shoot your shot. Be willing to go through and apply for that job. Again, if you've got a year's experience, it doesn't mean you can't apply for entry-level jobs as well. But kind of, you want to first look within your bracket to see if there's something that suits you. And if you can't find something that suits you there, widening it up and down, depending on where you are in your video game career journey, will also be useful. And then there's the contract types. First things first, if you are unable to work for free, do not ever click the unpaid internship and the volunteer section. You could tell the difference between internships, paid and unpaid, just because the unpaid stuff is listed together and is separate from the paid stuff. If you're studying and you don't need money and you're just looking for some experience, by all means go for look at those unpaid roles, but don't click on those things if you have to be making a living, if you have to be making rent, because you need to be making money through your work, and doing unpaid stuff isn't going to do that consistently enough. Something that I would really recommend is you'll see that the majority of jobs on our site right now are full-time. This is awesome. This is what we love to see. Full-time work in esports is the dream for most people. That is not to say that you can't make a living doing contract work or freelance work or even temp work in esports. So if you're looking for the ability to make your living in esports and gaming, and you click on full-time because that's the classic, that's the safest, that's the best, in quotation marks, option in your mind, absolutely great stuff. Don't be scared about clicking stuff like freelance and contract, because you can find work, especially in some sectors where full-time work in, say, casting is rare. But freelance work in casting is much more common. And if you want to make your living doing that, you can do so by picking up several freelance contracts, or even just 2 decent freelance contracts. So don't be scared about going for something that isn't full-time because you want to be able to make a living. Because you can do that without a full-time job in esports and video games. But as I said, full-time is where most of our jobs are, so you're going to see the broadest variety there. But checking out the other kind of paid listings is going to be a good option too. So we've talked through those filters and you've kind of got an idea of where you're at. So if you're like, I've got 2 years experience, I'm looking for full-time work or freelance work, so I'm an intermediate person looking for those things, and I really want to work in social media, and you've got all this stuff listed, when you create that filter, you can save the filter by clicking the big orange Save Filter button at the bottom just under Volunteer. This will save you a lot of time, and I know that from when I was job hunting on stuff like Hitmarker, or actually when I was job hunting on Hitmarker specifically, I never did this, so I was like, I'll just type in every time. Don't be me. Don't be stupid. Save the filters. It will make your life much easier. It's all linked to your account, so you can just go through and see what filters you want to be checking that day, and it will just make things quicker for you. And it will avoid mistakes. So if you're doing it every single time, maybe one time you miss clicking freelance because you're just doing it quickly and you miss out on a really cool freelance role that day. So you come to it a couple of days later than other people. Once you click that Save Filter button, it lets you choose the filter name. Obviously, name it something reasonable and memorable, but I'm not going to go through and check what you've named your filters. There's a little button, a tab below this that says, email me with new jobs. This is something that you should be utilizing, but not for every single filtered list. If you've got a filtered list that is just full-time esports jobs, maybe don't have that as your email because your inbox will explode. because we have over 1,000 esports jobs right now on our site. You probably don't want to be sent 417 jobs because we get multiple a day. And if you're checking back with Hitmarker regularly, you'll catch those kind of things. However, if you've got a very specific tailored list, which is your profile perfectly, with the right sector, the right year's experience, the locations all set, where there's going to be a much smaller amount of jobs. So if you're looking for an intermediate esports job in editorial and writing, there's only 8 jobs on Hitmarker for that right now. So setting up that filter to get sent to your email address means that whenever a new job is put in that category, you're going to get notified of it. And you're going to be like, wow, okay, this job, let's have a look at it. Let's see if it's relevant to me. And if you've been specific enough with your filters, the dream scenario is that every job that gets emailed to you under these filters will be something that you want to apply for, because you've already said that it's perfectly within your parameters. And we're not sending you stuff that's kind of in your parameters. So if you've set it as intermediate esports writing job, we're not going to send you intermediate writing jobs that aren't in esports, because that's not what you've asked from us. We're also not going to send you senior esports writing jobs, because again, that's not what you've asked us to do. It's just going to be specifically the stuff that you've asked for, so that everything you're getting sent is relevant to you. Utilize this, people. Make sure that you're using it on an email that's alive, that you check often, so you can see exactly when that perfect job might come through on Hitmarker. But don't use it for very, very generic filters, because otherwise you'll be emailed a lot of stuff every day, and you probably don't want that kind of thing. Lovely. Right, I'm going to check out if we've got any more questions. We do have another question. So this is the last call for questions. Again, don't worry if you are watching back on the YouTube video and being like, we need another question. I really wanted to ask something. Then don't worry. You can let us know in our Discord channel. We'll be happy to answer stuff in text, and there will be events in the future. But you can search for location on the page, which is great. But will there be a language filter in the future? Currently, there isn't. On hitmarker.net, the aim is to have, it's primarily English jobs. If you're looking for jobs in another language, then we have sites, we have regional sites that are for Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese, and Japanese. If you're looking for a role specifically in those languages, then you want to be checking out those sites as well, those localized versions, because they are going to just be those jobs in those native languages. So if you really want to be working in a Spanish job, then you want to be checking out that site. If you want to be looking at a job in Japanese, you want to be looking at that site. If you're looking for a job in a language that isn't any of those and isn't English, it will most likely, well, we don't source those jobs. So say German, for example, we don't source those jobs ourselves because my German is pretty limited, and we can't go through to make sure that the job is good and well written and not suspicious if I only understand 1 in every 4 words in the job description. And Google Translate, while a great tool, isn't always completely on the money. However, there are sometimes German jobs on our platform where companies will submit German jobs to us, and we'll post those after doing our best to have a quick translate to make sure that everything is fine and to understand the sectors and stuff properly. There is not currently a way of filtering specifically for languages on Hitmarker yet, but we're hoping to roll out lots of localized platforms to help you in your language searching job. If your preferred language isn't covered yet, hopefully it will be in the future, basically. Cool. And we had one related to improving job filters. Yes, actually, that's a great point, Rich. Amazing point. If you are looking for a job in another language, it can be worth searching in the job title section the language, so German, Spanish, and if there are any like language tags, so for German it's DE. If you search those, you might be able to find those jobs, because in the title we will always specify if it's in a language other than English. Thank you, Rich. That's an excellent point there. We have one more question about job filters, but it looks like Trevor's already covered it. Amazing. My co-workers are great. Much better than I am at this. So, everyone, that is it for this masterclass. Hopefully, you'll have found a lot of what we've said useful. One last point, and I will reiterate this. Light mode is gross. Definitely click the sun in the top right-hand corner to put your Hitmarker onto dark mode. It's just the correct way to do things. I will not be taking questions on that at this time. Really, really appreciate you all tuning in. This will be available on YouTube, so we'll link it in the Discord and let you know when that is available. Again, if you think of a question later or you're not watching this live and think, I really want to ask that, you can put it in our Discord. We'll be happy to answer any and all questions related to Hitmarker, the job hunt, pretty much anything, really. So don't be afraid to ask us that. And if it's something that you can't ask publicly or something that you don't feel comfortable asking publicly, you can DM a member of the Hitmarker team. We're all quite noticeable on the Discord. Or you can drop us an email on Hitmarker and we'll be able to answer your questions. But that is the last masterclass of this series. We're going to go away for a couple of weeks events-wise just to look over this series, see what's been good, seeing what we could do better for the next lot of events. We've got a couple of ideas in the works that are really, really awesome. So keep your eyes peeled in our Discord and on our Twitter in order to see what we've got coming next. There will be something coming next. We're just going to finalize exactly what that is. If you have any feedback about events at all, please just let us know in the Discord. You can @me Will so that I'm ensured to see it, and I'll write that down in my notes going into those kind of meetings, because again, we really want to put on content that you guys want. We don't want to just be sitting here and giving information that isn't relevant to you. We want to focus it on exactly the questions that you want answered and helping you in the best way possible. So massive, massive thank you for joining us today and throughout all of these talks. I've been Will from Hitmarker, and we will see you pretty soon, hopefully, for some more really, really awesome events. So we'll catch you in a bit.